Hello, and welcome to this video on the stockyards in Fort Worth, Texas. This is part of my trip to Texas that I made the end of October in 2025. Texas is in the southern central United States, and this trip encompassed Dallas and Fort Worth. So Fort Worth is a place where the stockyards are. It was chartered in July 26th, 1887, and remained an active stockyards until the last big dispersal sale in 1986. For 99 years, the Fort Worth Stockyards helped to feed America. From 1902 to 1986, there were a total of 178,548,871 head of livestock that was sold through the stockyards at Fort Worth. The Livestock Exchange Building was nicknamed the Wall Street of the West. There were once over 2,600 cattle pens at the Livestock Exchange Building. The Hog and Sheep Barns and the Horse and Mule Barns, Mule Alley, were also there. This is once the USA's third largest stockyards behind Chicago, Illinois, which was the largest, and Omaha, Nebraska, which was the second largest. Fort Worth Stockyards were the largest southwestern in the United States. During World War I, the largest horse and mule market was at Fort Worth because our allies came from France, Great Britain, and Canada to buy horses and mules for the war effort. In June of 1915, foreign governments had bought approximately 100,000 horses and mules from the Fort Worth Stockyards, totaling $11 million. The main reasons for the Fort Worth Stockyards is no longer an active stockyard market is that the packing plants closed and smaller rural towns and outskirts of the Fort Worth started having their own livestock sales. So we see a picture of the stockyards, what they look like from a while ago. And a cattle drive took about 90 days of travel. Resupply happened about halfway through, and they would go for 45 days, stop here in Fort Worth, hang out for a bit, resupply, and continue northward for 45 more days. Drovers on a cattle drive would advance the cattle in formation. The trail boss rode ahead to scout for water and pasture. Drovers would rotate among all the positions. The trail boss was the most experienced and determined the route and kept a sharp eye for trouble ahead. The point guided the cattle in the desired direction. The swing assisted the points in directing the herd as well as keeping them in formation. The flank kept the middle of the herd intact and in line, and the rear was brought up by the drag, which helped push the slower cattle to keep up with the rest of the herd. Remuda was the small replacement herd of fresh horses for the drovers. The wrangler oversaw the gathered mounts in the remuda. In the summer of 1871, about 30 cattle drives went through Fort Worth that summer, and the cattle drive season goes from April to October, and 600,000 head of cattle came through Fort Worth that year. It would take about 6 to 8 horses per man to make a trip, and they would change horses regularly. One cowboy, the wrangler, handled all the horses, handling up to about 30 heads of horses to make the trip. And the wranglers didn't use their own horses; they rode company horses. So if they rode off with the company horse, in those times that was a hanging offense. So they stayed until the job was done. The chuck wagon had carried the food, and when they unhitched it, they would put the forks of the wagon pointed north so they knew what direction to go. So twice a day in Fort Worth, one of the more interesting things to see is that they do actual live cattle steer herding. So a lot of that's probably one of the biggest tourist attractions and one of the most interesting things to see when you go to the stockyards at Fort Worth. So we thought it was very interesting, and I think you'll enjoy it too if you make sure the shows are at fixed times, so make sure you go there at those times. They also have a couple of signs in the town that show you all the different the actual 2020 steer that are there. You see Big Mac, Black Gold, Blacksmith, Brutus, and so forth. The cattle drive happens 7 times a week at 11:30 and 4 p.m. exactly at those times. So you want to make sure if you manage to get there, make sure you catch the show. So this is a map of the various trails. This was part of the museum, and I found online another map here. As you can see, the various trails. Um, the Chisholm Trail and McCoy Trail are also known as the Eastern Trail, which was used from 1867 to 1884, goes straight through Fort Worth, and that's the brown line trail on the right map there. And it's the only one that you'll see, the only major trail that went through um, Fort Worth. The Western or Dodge Trail you see in the orange there, the purple with the Goodnight Loving Trail, the Shawnee Trail in green, and there were various other trails as well, but those are the main four trails. So because the Chisholm Trail you saw went through Fort Worth, in Fort Worth itself, there was a trail post that commemorated and marked the location of the Great Eastern Cattle Road, or also known as the Old Chisholm Trail, and it left Fort Worth and headed north toward the Red River Station and into Indian Territory. It's identical to 400 Chisholm Trail posts placed all across Oklahoma from 1990 to 1997 by Robert Clem of Enid, Oklahoma, to mark the exact trail from Red River Station to Kansas, and set during the Chisholm Trail Roundup on June 16th of 2000. This is a kind of map of the stockyards. Was really kind of today is kind of like a miniature city, basically. It has all sorts of malls and tourist attraction things and all sorts of interesting things to do. Lots of restaurants and, of course, the cattle drive show at 11:30 and 4. This is a view of one of the sort of strip malls that was there, or mall and indoor/outdoor mall. So there are lots of interesting stores there. Gifts, apparel is a very touristy area to buy all sorts of souvenirs and knickknacks. This was also part of Fort Worth. This was the maze. So there was a fun, like, sort of human maze you could walk through for entertainment. And they also have a railroad excursion that happens on the weekends as well that you can book. This is a petting zoo, so you could feed the goats here. And in one of the main buildings is the Fort Worth Stockyards, and the museum was in building Suite 113. So you can go in. There's a really densely packed museum with tons of interesting stuff, and some of the history and memorabilia of the time. So this is a picture from inside of the museum. You see some of the saddles, and they have signs everywhere. And this is just a small slice of one of the exhibits. This is another exhibit in the museum. So the mail exchange here, and you can see, like, there's a typewriter and 6 generations of the Sandert family that we raised cattle in Texas since 1850. This is another poster in the museum as well, showing the different cuts of a cow. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video on the stockyards at Fort Worth, Texas in the USA. If you ever get a chance to visit, it's about 50 minutes outside of Dallas, so very well worth the visit. It gives you some of the feel and flavor of Texas, and otherwise it's just a simple modern city, and this gives a lot more of the heritage and a sense of culture of the area. So check out some of my other travel videos. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.